The views expressed are not those of local community broadcasting, WYML LP, or its management, volunteers, or underwriters. Greetings and welcome to the Personal Safety Show. This is Marcus Melnick from Stress 2 Logic and Firearm Mentor, your host. And I saw a very interesting meme this week where it said instead of suing gun manufacturers for deaths by firearm, maybe sign manufacturers for defective no gun zone signs. That kind of blew my mind. I was very interested in that, and I thought it was kind of funny. And I understand it was a meme and all that good stuff. Well, autumn is upon us. Because autumn is upon us, there are different safety issues that we need to be aware of. And this segment of the show is going to be devoted to that type of safety. So during autumn, all the leaves change and they fall depending on where you live in the United States. And typically gutters get blocked. And I am always cleaning out my gutters constantly. But I had surgery recently on my rotator cuff, and there is no way I am getting on a ladder, at least while I'm in a sling and can't do much with my right arm. So we had our landscaping crew do our cleaning our leaves out of our gutters. And there's different systems out there. I've heard positives, I've heard negatives, but as far as ladder safety goes, falling is one of the most common reasons for ER trips. If you're going to clean out your gutters, you want to work as a team, 2 people, so that if whoever's on the ladder gets injured, falls, somehow gets in trouble, there's a second person. Because ladders can buckle, they can slip, so you want to have someone hold the ladder as you climb up and down, not hold the person's legs. If you're on the ladder, your body weight should be centered over the ladder and don't reach too far. So standing on that top step of an A-frame ladder is probably not a good idea. It's better to move the ladder a few times than to fall. And fall meaning hit the ground. I don't mean fall meaning autumn. Other things that happen are we tend to start using our fireplaces and fire pits. And as far as fireplaces go, we want to be able to inspect it before lighting the first fire. One of the simple joys is warming up in front of a fireplace. In fact, every Halloween, what my wife and I do is we have a fire pit in the backyard. Although I can't move it, I'll have my stepson move it and her move it. On Halloween, we move it to the front of the house, and we have a fire. We sit by the fire. Halloween's typically not a warm day, but we have this fire going, and it's very inviting to people. And then we have a little card table with candy on it. Kids come up to us, but we get to sit there and either read a book or visit. Sometimes our neighbors come over and we'll hang out. But as far as inside the house, if you have a fireplace, you want to have it cleaned and inspected before lighting your first fire. Now, I'm giving you an opinion. This is only an opinion, and you can take it. I'm only telling you what I do. Last year, I think I used my fireplace once or twice. That's not really enough to have a fireplace cleaning, so I don't always do it every year. But if you use your fireplace often, a buildup of soot and creosote, which is flammable, can cause a chimney fire. And working at a fire department, I will tell you, chimney fires are not from. Could be a dangerous backup of carbon monoxide gas into your home. So you want to keep the area on the fireplace clear and remove any hanging decorations on your mantle. And more importantly, a fire extinguisher should be nearby. Now, if you have a fireplace and you look at it, typically in front of it is going to be tile, an elevated thing, a non-flammable concrete bricks. And that's by design, so that if a log or an ash or piece of burning ember rolls out of the fireplace, and we all have the metal shades or drapes, and some of us have glass enclosures, but that's designed to capture anything that would be burning so it wouldn't actually catch fire. Now, there was a home in Winnetka when I worked at the Glencoe apartment, and they carpeted right up to the fireplace. So lo and behold, a log rolled out onto the carpet. Now, modern construction is not what it was years ago. there's a lot of glues, and the glues are flammable, and the whole room went up in flames. So that was a fire department response. I just want everyone to be safe. And as far as candles, we don't want to leave candles burning unattended or when we are sleeping. Glowing candles can make the environment, but you should have the candles away from anything that could burn, like curtains, bedding, books. Always extinguish a candle before going to bed or leaving the house. And we don't want to leave children or pets alone, especially if you have a cat. And cat people will know about that when burning a candle. So what do? Well, I love scented candles. Yes, I'm a sensitive kind of guy. So I have a trivet, and I put my candle on the trivet, and the trivet is supposed to absorb heat, and it does, and we don't have any issues with it. Of course, we definitely blow it out before we leave the room or leave the home. So that is a little bit about fire safety. And remember, when we change our clocks in a couple of weeks, we want to inspect our smoke detectors, carbon monoxide detectors, and any firearm accessory batteries we should change. Now, there's a law in Illinois that says they can no longer sell battery-powered smoke detectors. It's an integrated battery, good for 10 years. And remember, these detectors only work for 10 years. So when it says mounted on, you're supposed to write the date, not mounted on the ceiling. Okay, that was a little bit of a joke, but please be safe. Now, I always say out to everyone, if you have optics or flashlights or whatever on your firearms, you should also change the batteries in those. Now, I understand you have a CR123 battery with a 10-year life, but things only fail upon being tested. So we don't want to get into that type of situation. Let's talk about roadways and wildlife. You know, it's autumn. We've already gone back to school, but that has traffic challenges. There's school buses, kids on bicycles, teen drivers. We want to slow down and take extra care to look for children in schools, their playgrounds, central areas. As a matter of fact, we had a neighbor fly down the street. I mean, she's got kids. She was probably going 50 or so. Just if people live in the areas, really, are you responding to an emergency? Probably not, because you're not a police officer or a firefighter. We also don't want to pass a bus with flashing red lights on or another vehicle stopped for a pedestrian. And when I was in college, I went to Loyola University, and I lived in Skokie. That's where I grew up. I would drive to the Lakeshore campus, which was in Rogers Park, and all of my major classes were downtown. So I would get on, they had a shuttle bus, so it was free. If I got out early from a class and the shuttle bus wasn't going to leave for an hour, I would take the L. But in any event, one morning I was on this shuttle bus, and it was stopped for a light. The light had turned green. The bus still stopped, but someone decided to cross, a student decided to cross in front of it. And as she got around the bus, another car was flying, didn't see her, and boom, hit her. And she had a broken hip, broken legs. I jumped off the bus along with another person. The other person stayed with the person who got hit by a car, and I got back on the bus. And luckily, that person wasn't killed, but the driver of that car that hit the person was an absolute wreck. She was an Asian woman. She couldn't even articulate. I mean, she felt so bad. She couldn't articulate herself. And that's kind of what I do with my other company, Stress to Logic, is I teach people how to overcome those blockers. And that is an epitome of what she needed to do at the time. Now, this was 30 years ago. I really didn't have the knowledge then that I have now. So I wasn't able to calm her down other than to say, it's going to be okay, it's going to be okay. And I was the one that called 911 with her cell phone. So she had the wherewithal to actually hand me a cell phone, but she couldn't speak coherently. Wildlife is always on the move in the fall. I mean, we see the geese, we see all sorts of things. They're migrating to the south. But there's also deer, if you're up in Wisconsin, possibly turkeys, critters, skunks, crossing the road in front of your vehicle. And they're most active when it's dark out, so you can't see them. Some animals, particularly deer, coyotes, frequently travel in groups. If you see one crossing, there's bound to be others, so be careful. Now, in some areas, it's rural, and we want to share the road with harvesting equipment. So there's large farming equipment that's on the roads. They're slow moving. We want to give them plenty of space. and it provides better visibility to you and the other driver. They may turn unexpectedly into fields or driveways, and just because you can see the equipment doesn't mean the other driver can see you. As far as the yard goes, you may have a beautiful lawn and garden, but we got to prep it for a cold winter. So leaf blowers can be loud and blow more than just leaves. So eye protection, eye protection, eye protection, and hearing protection. What? So I have a friend, and he was cleaning up some sticks in his backyard. And, he's snapping them, making them smaller, probably going to throw them in his fire pit. Well, one of the sticks snapped. He was not wearing eye protection, and a piece of bark or wood flew into his eye, and he was hurt. Not so bad. But his young son and him went to go for a walk, and all of a sudden, boom, it hits him, and he doubles over in pain from his eye. And turns off he scraped off some layers of his eye, and it's the type of injury that when he closes his eye, go to sleep, and he opens it, it rips off that piece of scar tissue. So he is in constant pain for the rest of his life. Very, very important to wear eye protection and hearing protection. Now, I typically don't wear hearing protection, but I wear glasses, and that's good enough. So we want to just make sure that we are absolutely safe. And when you're getting your yard ready for winter, this morning, I'm recording this on Wednesday the 16th, I went out to my car for physical therapy for my shoulder, and I saw, we've got frost. So that tells me time to put some window scrapers into your window brushes, snow brushes into your car, and also to start to park in the garage. So I have a client coming over today to have me teach him how to clean a firearm. After he's done and we clean up, I'm going to clean out the garage so that I can actually park in the garage and not have to scrape ice. Or you might have a remote start. So make sure that works. The other thing is we want to, and I'm going to sound like Joe Biden, please don't get turned off. You got to get the shot. You got to get the shot. So there's a new COVID vaccine. There's the flu shot. You can protect yourself. That's a safety and health issue. And the viruses, at least in the influenza vaccine, are inactive, so you cannot get the flu from the vaccine. Sometimes people say, I got the shot and now I have the flu. Yeah, you have the flu because you already were exposed to it and got the shot. So after you get vaccinated, it's about 2 weeks to develop antibodies to protect against influenza, and that's why getting vaccinated early in the fall is recommended. And if you go to Walgreens, you will get a coupon for 20% off $20 or more. And if you get it done at a grocery store like The Jewel, you will get 10% off of your groceries. So I will be going to The Jewel. Remember, I am a consumer just like. With that said, leaves can get frosted. Leaves can get slippery. Driveways can get slippery. Now is the time to buy salt and sand. What? I only use salt or ice melt or snow melt if you have pets because we don't want to hurt them with actual sodium chloride. There are other products out there. So why am I saying sand? Well, if there is a puddle, an ice puddle near a downspout, and it is really cold or that water keeps coming and freezing, sand is a better option than salt because it gives you some grit and it prevents you from falling. You can also there is a product where you slip on over your shoes and it's looks like a big spring and rubber and it gives you traction. I used to use those when I had to walk a far distance from the parking lot to the Glencoe. It was the last plowed, even though the employees were expected the first to be there. That's a little dig, sorry, not sorry, but that's the way it was. Also, you need to be extremely cautious on the ice. Several years ago, it had to be 10 years ago or so, I was living with my sister, and it was icy out, and it was one of those things where it was kind of icy, kind of rainy, both, and that's really, really dangerous. So I go out to my car, I'm standing at the keypad, I close the garage door, and boom, I slip, I fall, I hear a big crunch in my right ankle. So I'm like, well, that didn't feel good. I laid there for a minute saying, how am I going to get up? And pain subsided. I got up. I drove to work. I stood on my feet for 4 hours. Then I looked at my ankle, which was the size of a baseball sticking out. And I was like, maybe I ought to go to the emergency room. So I drove myself to the emergency room. Keep in mind, this is my right foot. I get to the ER. Sure enough, but it's the bone that does not support weight was broken at the ankle. So they put me in a boot. They say you need to go to an orthopedist who put me in a cast later on. Oh, but you can't drive home. That's your right foot. And I'm thinking, I'll manage with my left foot. And for 6 weeks, I drove, maybe it was 8 weeks, I drove with my left foot. I still was a better driver than most of the other drivers out there. But we want to make sure that we're not slipping. And when you're going to go walk a dog, same type of thing. If it's icy, maybe it's a good time to let the dog in the backyard. If you've been listening to me for a little while, you know that I'm all about managing risk, and I'm all about trying to keep people safe, no matter if it's a self-defense situation or even just the sitting. The other thing you want to do is, I have to say this, but put on warm clothes. Now, that's kind of silly. My cousin Mary Ware, lovely, lovely individual, just passed away, and we had her celebration of life at my cousin's house in Antioch. And it was a lovely service. It was great, very, very warm, at least the feeling was. But the temperature was not warm because this was held in the backyard. In my mindset, I'm like, oh, well, this is summertime. I mean, it's still fall. I didn't wear shorts and a Speedo and a tank top. I did wear long pants and a coat, but it wasn't warm enough. So you want to definitely make sure that you have enough warm clothes. Now, a couple other things that you can do. You can go on Amazon and you can buy what's called roping gloves. They're like $1 a pair. They're just wool, really simple. I have those. I leave them in my car because if I get to my car and I forget my gloves, that steering wheel is cold. So I'll put those on. I also have in my car the hand warmers. Those are things you can get almost anywhere. Walgreens, Menards, Walmart. And they're these little packets that when they interact with the air, they warm up. It's a chemical reaction, and you can put them in your boots or your socks. You can put them in your gloves. And if anyone uses Thermacare, which is kind of the wrap it's a heating pad, it's the same type of technology where you can actually, you have a sore back, you have a sore shoulder, and I've used them too, where it's adhesive on one side, you basically tape it on wherever it hurts, and it's a heating pad for up to 16 hours. You can use those to warm up as well, but I would encourage you to have, I sound like a Jewish mother, to have hats and gloves in your car. I also have hats and gloves in my go bag, because if we do have to evacuate, we're going to be running out really quick. I've got extra socks, extra gloves, the roping gloves that I mentioned. I've got hand warmers and hats. And these are the old hats, or the hats that my kids got at a bar or bat mitzvah, or something we're not wearing regularly. Maybe it's a silly hat. Doesn't matter. The whole idea is to keep warm. And at that point, it really doesn't matter if you have a fashionable hat or not.
I want my listeners to know that this is my dream, teaching people about safety. If it weren't for you, if it weren't for my listeners, I couldn't live my dream. So on behalf of my family and myself, I want to thank each and every one of you for allowing me to live my dream. And I also want to continue to live my dream, and I'm excited to continue to spread the word of safety. Recently, I began a new service as a conference keynote speaker. So if anyone would like for me to speak at future events, or if anyone knows of an introduction or would like to discuss how we can work with one another, I'd love to do just that. The keynote speaking website is www.stress2logic.com. That is STRESS2logic.com. If you're aware of any conference speaking engagements where you'd like to have me speak, I'd love an introduction. You can always share my electronic business card, which is Marcus Melnick, MarcusMelnick.com. Now, back to the show.
Switching gears a little bit, I am a big fan of TikTok. My TikTok account typically has funny things on it. I don't do a lot of serious stuff on TikTok. That's kind of my outlet for comedy. But there are a ton of books on there. Now, it depends on your FYP, your flow, but I got 3 of them. The first one is called No Grid Survival Projects, and it's how to produce everything you need on your property, including things like how to build a rainwater catchment system. These are all preps. Ammo for long-term storage are some topics. DIY bicycle generator. Yeah, like a teenager's going to be riding a bike so we can have power. How to charge your phone with no electricity, like with a 9-volt battery. There's a ton of tips and tricks, and I have this how to make a hardtack emergency survival bread. And this is all from experts. Meal in a bag, hamburger, gravy, and mashed potatoes. And one of the things I saw on TikTok was a book, and I was extremely interested in it. And the book is called A Navy SEAL's Bug-In Guide, How to Turn Your House into the Safest Place on Earth by Joel Lambert. And me being a consumer, and in this case, a dumb consumer, I went on Amazon and I found a book, Navy SEAL's Bug-In Guide, How to Transform Your Home into the Safest Place on Earth. It's a very similar front cover, and the good book is by Joel Lambert. The one I got is from James Landers. So I didn't really pay that much attention, but you get what you pay for. So this was a little bit less money, and it's very, very general. The other thing, I'm going to make a little bit of a criticism. So A Navy SEAL's Bug-In Guide by James Landers is very interesting. Now, it's very general. It will tell you things like, ensure use of a certified electrician to thoroughly examine your electrical system for safety and operational efficiency. Search for dangers such as uncovered cables or circuits. And it's telling you just these very general things. Let me give you another one. Techniques for home defense. Reinforcing doors. Material. Substitute hollow core doors with either solid core or metal doors. A lot of this is common sense. But one of the things that I question is spelling. Yes, I'm a grammar Nazi. So this book has British spelling in it. So neighbors is spelled Neigbours. That is the way people in Great Britain spell. Very interesting. So I don't know if this guy is actually Navy SEAL. I'm not sure. In any event, both books and all prep books is the essential lesson is survival originates in the mind. During a crisis, it's common to be overwhelmed by anxiety, uncertainty, and doubt. But during those incidents, it's imperative to maintain composure, concentration, and resolve. The mindset of a survivor is recognizing that fear is detrimental, and clear, logical thinking is the most potent tool at one's disposal. Once again, that's why I do these stuff with stress to logic. Now, the book that you get on TikTok by Joel Lambert called How to Turn Your House into the Safest Place on Earth. This guy actually he was the SEER part of survival school, survival, evasion, resistance, and escape. And after the Navy, the author was recruited by the Discovery Channel to star in Manhunt/Lone Target, which was a global television series on escape and evasion. He would infiltrate different secured areas of various countries, and then their special operations force, specialty tracking unit, or police tracking team would track him, and he'd attempt to outsmart them. And it was a training exercise. It was a game. This book by Joel Lambert is phenomenal. It talks about not just inspect your stuff, it tells you how to make things. For example, it will tell you to have powdered chicken bouillon. So it's a powdered broth base that can be reconstituted in water. Instead of saying things like, oh, make sure you have food. This is telling you pasta, oats, ghee, let's see what else, canned soup, canned fish, canned meats, canned vegetables. It tells you exactly what to get. It talks about their shelf life. It talks about dried herbs and spices. And it draws upon some recipes from like the Wild West and how to gradually build your stockpile. And if you heard me saying on previous shows that you should probably get an extra case of water, between now and the election, each time you go to the grocery store, get an extra paper towel, get an extra toilet paper. I mean, there was this big toilet paper run when the longshoremen went on strike for a very short time. I can imagine there might be interruptions in supply delivery. Now, we're not all self-sufficient. We rely on Jewel and Mariano's and all that, those stores. And what we can do is we can freeze things. You can have rice, pasta, beans. They have a meal plan in this book. It's really a comprehensive book. Now, I can't really do a lot of props because my wife doesn't like it when I do props. She thinks it's kind of a waste, but that's the whole thing. A prepper is a moron until an emergency happens, and then a prepper is a genius. I'm a quiet prepper. I don't have all these booby traps around my house, although I'm very, very secure. But I'm a realistic prepper. And what that means is, look, I know that there's not going to be a zombie apocalypse. However, there might be civil unrest. There might be a pandemic, which I saw. There might be a war. Now, that's really far-fetched, but the whole idea is to be prepared for things, be self-sufficient. And this book is awesome. It's telling you to buy instant, non-fat, dry milk, great value. It's $8.43. It's 25 ounces. And this is all telling you where to get protein, where to get condiments and spices, what your survival diet will be, which is higher calorie, but minimal. And it tells you what seeds to stockpile for a crisis. So I highly, highly recommend it. If you go on TikTok and you look up Joel Lambert, JoelLambert, the author, his book is A Navy SEAL's Bug-In Guide, and the subtitle is How to Turn Your House into the Safest Place on Earth. There's a ton of other prep books out there. Some are good, some are not. It's kind of, you're ordering blindly when you order them online. I get some that are good. I get some that are not so good. So it may be better to go to a local bookstore and kind of thumb through and see if it is something that you would like to get. But I wanted to differentiate between the two books that are extremely similar looking, but extremely different content-wise. Hope you enjoyed this segment. We will be back shortly with more safety in programming. Thank you.
The views expressed are not those of local community broadcasting, WYML LP, or its management, volunteers, or underwriters.